is Common Cues. Today's question is, why do women inherit less than men in Islam? Nowadays, we're all about equality, equal treatment, equal say, equal just about everything. Perhaps except for equal pay. And one major equality to many of us is gender equality. To say women and men should be treated differently in any way is nowadays considered downright sacrilegious. And that's where a lot of the more recent questions about Islam stem from. Because Islam prescribes different rules for members of different genders, from the way they dress to how much they inherit, which by the way is less for women, as you may have already heard. Now, one might say that to give women any inheritance 1400 years ago, when they themselves were often considered property, was revolutionary by itself, because before the advent of Islam, the status of families was determined by the amount of property and chattels the families owned. Property included livestock, shelter, farmland, crops, land, jewelry, clothes, weapons, slaves, and sometimes women. Women at this point in time had no status, so they themselves could not inherit anything. In fact, they themselves could be inherited by another man as property. Other world religions did not provide for the inheritance of women either. Hindu law and Zoroastrian law subjugated women to their fathers, husbands, or brothers, and more often than not, the inheritance of a family's estate would pass to the hands of the eldest son. This also applied to the doctrines in Catholicism, in which it was almost impossible for women to inherit property. In these religions, this pattern of female exclusion from the family estate continued until the end of the 19th century. But long before that, the Quran said, "For men, there is a share from what their parents and close relatives leave, and for women, there is a share from what their parents and close relatives leave." But that can't be a good enough reason, you might say, right? Because Muslim scholars continue to resist the identical treatment of men and women to this day, including in the amount of inheritance. So what's up with this form of gender inequality? Now, times have changed, but many of us still remember the concept of the breadwinner and how it's traditionally a male role. Some of us remember mothers who didn't have to leave us at a daycare. My mom was one. She was productive her whole life, but what she produced was rarely money. She put all her efforts into raising us and made sure we were looked after, from cooking healthy homemade meals to answering our emotional needs. But for her to be able to do all that, she needed financial support, and that was my dad's job. See, according to Islam, regardless of the country a Muslim is from and its constitution, it's always the man's job to be the breadwinner and never the responsibility of the woman. Men are responsible for fulfilling all financial needs of women and children, from food to clothing to shelter. If a woman chooses to do chores at home, as in cook and clean and raise kids, she has the right to be paid for it. And if a woman chooses to work at a paid position outside her home, she gets to keep her money to herself, and the men of the family have no claim to that money whatsoever. She doesn't even have to spend it on her own children. So a Muslim woman has both full claim to what she earns herself and partial claim to what her father or husband earn, whereas men are not even entitled to everything they earn or inherit themselves. And since men are solely held responsible for the financial support of their family, they also get a bigger share of inheritance than women do. And that's one reason given for the fact that women inherit half of what men do, as is said in the Holy Quran. A son's share is equal to the share of 2 daughters. In judging every single rule, we need to first put it in context. And that's also the case for Islamic rules. That's it for today. What's your question? Don't forget to ask us, and remember, your question is our question too.